Well, a warm welcome to you all. My name's Adam Jull. I'm the founder and CEO of IMS CAD. I'm going to be presenting the webinar today to you all. I see a few familiar faces have registered and quite a few end users and a few vendors, so it's great to have a good mix. I actually did one of these this morning for the EMEA audience, which it certainly created a bit of debate, and I'd encourage you all to put any questions in the questions box on your GoToMeeting tab. That'd be great, and then obviously at the end we can have a little bit of a Q&A. I'm going to try and keep this quite high level. I don't want to get too much in the detail about what we did and how we did it too much, because it just will just kind of end up in more of a technical conversation. And I think this is more about a more IMS CAD third-party view of this solution now, and where it sits against NVIDIA GRID, and obviously some of the results we'll obviously share, but we've got some more information on our website, so we can do that. You're all going to be on mute obviously for the duration of the webinar, and then obviously as I said, we can obviously answer questions at the end if you as we go along. If you have any questions, just pop them in that panel there. So this is all about this webinar is all about what IMS CAD did with Intel last October now, when we first started it, and how we got about sort of and what they were looking to achieve from this, because obviously they're new players in the GPU market, of course, and you've got kind of NVIDIA there as the leader, and by quite a distance. So it's an interesting play by Intel, and I think as things develop, it's a really interesting solution. So I'm going to just crack on a little bit and tell you a little about us, for those of you who don't know, and why we were kind of involved in this whole process. We're a UK-based business, so interesting. So we're based right in central London. We've got sort of 3 sites, including a data center, and we've been doing this for a long time. We're doing graphics virtualization for over 6 years. When I started the company, it really was kind of in its infancy, particularly with Citrix, in particular with something like XenApp, and then we used to use NVIDIA Quadro cards and use XenApp to offer users remote access solutions and things like that. So this is really early days, and vGPU wasn't around, and this is back when a lot of people said I was a bit crazy to start it back then. But in some ways it's given us a lot of knowledge and experience in the market, and that's obviously transpired into us having a lot of experience with the virtualization side of things, and specifically with graphics. So although we're in the UK, don't let that put you off. We probably have 60 to 70% of our customers in the US. We're doing a number of projects in the US currently, and I expect us to do quite a few more. So we are I would say a global company, even though we're based in London. Because of the technology, of course, you can actually just remote into servers and do your thing with the software stack that you need to do. So this is the power that we have, and obviously thank you for the internet for that, but ultimately it gives us a great reach into customers' environments, and I think we're doing one at the moment in Brazil, for example. So there's all these kind of ways we can assist customers remotely, so we don't need to be on site. But obviously more and more as things develop, we find that customers, we do a lot of consulting work, particularly with one ISV called Autodesk, who we very much started out with. So they use us quite a bit with a lot of their major accounts to support customers' deployments and POCs and things like that they want to do. So this is kind of why we were chosen by Intel to be that company to do this type of testing, because we've got a very good broad knowledge of the graphics virtualization market, and at the same time, good knowledge of the user apps and the CAD and 3D graphics apps that we've tested, and of course we've got the customers to actually test it. So yeah, so that was the reason. We have a 24/7 help desk, so we support all our customers that way, again all remotely, and we spend a lot of time troubleshooting, I have to be honest, which is unfortunate, but it's the nature of this sort of technology. Customers with installs that aren't quite performing, so that's a lot of our business as well. We help people out a lot, and we also do full deployment. So really do as little or as much as you like as a customer with us, and you know, we can kind of do the whole thing, or say just a day's work just to help you out. So as I say, you know, we have that sort of end-to-end solution for services, and of course, you know, we actually, as I said, mentioned Autodesk earlier, we actually started out by working with them, and of course, effectively what we did was we got a contract from them to certify the building design suite, which is one of their sort of suite of products, in particular in the architectural space that's used for Citrix, which is a massive coup for us, and that really set us on our way. You know, 4 or 5 years ago this was, and you know, that obviously led us on to having an engineering team, and then obviously being skilled in more recently in VMware as well, because obviously they're coming into this space now. vGPU is NVIDIA, so their solution's got a lot better with graphics, and you know, more and more customers who have a VMware hypervisor tend to want to use VMware ideally, but you know, obviously Zen Desktop can work as well, so, or Zen App. So you know, there is that kind of thing, and of course we've got Microsoft stepping up to this and doing vGPU this year. So it's really exciting times in the market at the moment, and you know, there's a lot out there, and you know, the solution itself is getting more. You know, there's more options for you as a customer. So we've done upwards of about 550 NVIDIA virtual deployments. Now, what I mean by that is they're not all vGPU, and with the grid cards, they're actually Quadro cards, and obviously using Zen App. So you know, those remote access solutions I mentioned earlier. So we also have an AEC manufacturing base, so that's where we really sit. So the AEC, just for those that don't know, is architects, engineering, construction, and manufacturing customers. So anyone that needs effectively a GPU is where we work, and we're not there to do, you know, thousands of users on VDI, on Citrix or VMware. You know, that's not our business. You know, there's plenty of companies that can do that, and we work with a lot of them actually, and they use us for our specialization. So we're very focused on what we do and what we don't do, but effectively we also have, you know, our skills really around the applications is key, and how they work properly in these virtual environments. As I said, we've cut our teeth with Autodesk, and that's continuing, but we've deployed many, you know, different ISV softwares, because you just, and you know, users need, you know, 10, 20 apps, you know, plugins and everything else to actually do their job effectively. So you know, you cannot underestimate that at all. So you know, so that is one obviously key point about IMS CAD, you know, is our sort of experience within this. So what I wanted to do was start off really talking a little bit more about NVIDIA themselves, and of course their vGPU success, as I call it, and what it brings to you as a user, and of course, especially with CAD and graphical applications, you know, this has been a real revelation in the market, and you know, we've seen, you know, lots of customers want to do POCs and try this out, this technology, because it just makes sense, right? Than having a distributed data set distributed hardware estate. You know, it's obviously just easier to manage. Centralization is really the way forward now. It's kind of gone full circle, I think you'll all agree, you know, back to kind of mainframe days now, and that's what's kind of good with it. And these benefits I've got here are all relative. You know, as a CAD user, as a designer, you know, you're tied to that desk pretty much, you know, all the time, 8 hours a day or whatever you work. You know, to have a user mobility and have a solution where you can actually get the performance on your home PC or your tablet device, you know, it is a massive advantage to these guys. You know, they're allowed to, you know, you can say to them you can work from home a day or 2 a week. You know, those sort of things for that work-life balance bring real business benefits, happier staff, and more productivity. So, you know, one thing we see a lot of, and we've got customers that will tell you this, you know, the IP security piece is a key benefit and a key factor in why people would do this and virtualize. So, you know, that sort of data management piece is significant, and more as the world gets, I guess, less insecure. Sorry, more insecure, I should say. You know, you get some design data that's sensitive and it's in a distributed data environment, like in a traditional workstation environment, that data is always up for disappearing or laptops being lost, and that whole data has been gone, and that can fall into the wrong hands. So this virtualization piece really does solve that. Customers, of course, IT love it because it's a much more simpler deployment, much more management. IT management is reduced massively because it's a one sort of instance management. So you get that kind of deploy an application, it's done, it deploys to everybody. You don't have to go around putting disks in machines or managing that kind of large hardware footprint. Big data graphics, obviously graphics are becoming more and more relevant, and applications are becoming more and more graphical. I mean, Windows 10 is very graphical as a product. It's just becoming more and more the norm to have a GPU, and I think this is why, of course, NVIDIA are doing what they're doing, and of course now why someone like Intel have come into the space as well, and the OEMs that work with them. So it is more and more users, and I'm not talking about designers here, I'm talking about office users. They will need a GPU. Most people have a GPU in their phone. Most people have a GPU in their laptop. So it's been there a while. It's just obviously now it's becoming more and more relevant in the enterprise that you need a GPU to have that more enriched experience. Just running video, just having a GPU just makes it so much better. So there's a lot of benefit around this, and we see more and more larger engineering customers, multidiscipline customers wanting to do global collaboration. So you'd obviously centralize into a data center with all your data, say in the US, in one data center, and then you've got maybe another one in Europe, and then you've got that replication piece. So that whole kind of follow the sun as well, workforce as well. You could maybe have one in Asia as well. So I think there's a real few options now, and that sort of leads nicely on to that collaboration on that data, to the cloud. And the cloud providers that are out there at the moment, more and more are having NVIDIA GRID cards in them, in their environment. And we work with one in particular, which is IBM SoftLayer, and they have a very good solution, and they give you full visibility of the hardware you're buying or sort of renting. And what's great about this is, of course, customers want to just stand up 20 users in Singapore, for 6 months, and they don't really want to buy 20 workstations and deploy an infrastructure or people, to run that infrastructure. So, they can just do it now in a sort of cloud environment, and then someone like us with experience can manage that whole infrastructure for them. So, although it's not cheap and it costs money, and you'll pay a lot more for that cloud solution than you would if you had it yourself as your own hardware. But effectively, it's that kind of flexibility of turning it on for 6 months and then turning it off. So, really interesting. And NVIDIA are involved in all this stuff, and their solutions with vGPU are more and more becoming more and more used and adopted. So what's happened with Intel, of course, is they've developed a GPU effectively embedded on the CPU, which is on the same silicon. So that's a really interesting way of doing it. And of course, you're obviously then putting it into a specific server, which is a cartridge-based server. It doesn't fit in a normal kind of, like an NVIDIA card would go in a normal server, or a couple of NVIDIA cards in a normal server. This is more of a kind of a bit like a mini blade, I suppose you'd call it, where you get that kind of, I put it there at the bottom of that slide, the tiny workstation. Effectively that's what it is. I mean, it's basically, and we're working very closely with one of the providers, which is HP Moonshot, and they, I mean, there's obviously other OEMs that do this, and Supermicro and Cisco are one of them, and obviously Cisco just come to market with a similar sort of thing with 8 or 16 cartridges in that, and each of those cartridges effectively is a tiny workstation in the data center. So that's a really interesting way of going about it, and I think it's always been, is that GPU up to it for these workflows? And we know they do great CPUs. They're absolute, the #1 CPU provider in the world, and we know they're really fast these days. And if they can get that GPU, and I think because of the embedded and the way the technology works, it's just so quick. All the actions are so quick. There's no PCI bus to the NVIDIA the graphics card. So that whole kind of processing is super fast. And of course, the HP Moonshot in particular is one that we've obviously going to be talking about in a little bit in our testing that we did. You can get 45 of these cartridges in that chassis. So that's 45 workstations, if you want it to be that. We've done obviously testing with other things like using something like XenApp or VMware View, where you can actually then get 2 or 3 users on a cartridge. So for those lesser required users, so people that don't need as much GPU as a designer or a CAD user. So it really is a big, and this server is a 4U chassis. So you're talking about putting effectively 45 workstations into a 4U chassis. So that's a pretty powerful offering when you're talking about power savings in the data center. And I think what we found is that talking to customers about it, they kind of get it. It's like it's a lot easier to sell it, I think, as a solution, because it's just it's a hardware-based solution. It's not you don't need a hypervisor necessarily. So you can have a bare metal type approach where you just have Desktop or XenApp or Horizon View or View delivering your applications. So or your VDI. So it really is an interesting change in the market, and something that should be taken seriously. And I have to add, actually, we did testing on the previous release of the Intel cartridges. So they were the Intel processor called the Haswell range. I've got to say they struggled. They struggled with anything over 50 meg as a model, so the GPU just wasn't up to it. And we fed that back to Intel. They knew that, and they obviously have gone away and produced the Broadwell cartridge, which was actually a massive jump. We found. I'm going to get a little bit more into that in the results we talk about. And I think the first thing to say about our testing, so just to be clear, we had a HP Moonshot with the Intel Broadwell processors, and we had an HP DL380 NVIDIA GRID K2 in it, in the same rack, in the same data center in London. And the idea behind it, and we're not, we do a lot of this sort of things for vendors, where we do benchmarking and sort of load testing and different things. We did it with the grid cards when they first were released, and for the main CAD apps, because we're just known in that space. But I would have to say that in this case, we didn't want to do that. We wanted to make it much more customer facing, let's say, and getting that customer opinion of usability, and that's what we really are trying to achieve here. It's not about what's got the best graphics, what's got the fastest CPU, why is that, and what's the outcome. We don't want to do things like that. This is all about what does the customer really think runs better, right? What actually runs with their app, with their data better. And it really is about that. And there's obviously they're in the same data center, in the same rack, so there's no difference. Now, I have to say it's not a like-for-like test, all right? I don't think you can call it that. The actual DL380 is not, the latest version. It's not the best processor you can get, and so you just got to take it with a view that actually, okay, this is just a test that we did that really is more about usability and what's the customer really think after using it. And we engaged 30 of our customers, which did take a bit of time to get together, I have to say, mainly in the AEC space, so a lot of architects, a lot of manufacturing clients, and of course we created a sort of set test tasks and specific actions they had to do during the test. And it was no more than like an hour's work, but they had specific customers would test AutoCAD, some others would test Revit, some others would test Inventor. As you can see, we also did SolidWorks and Siemens NX. And if you look at Inventor, SolidWorks, and Siemens, they're serious apps. They actually take a lot of GPU normally, and AutoCAD and Revit are more CPU bound. So, we thought they would run okay. It's just how big the model could go. And at the end of the day, when you're using Revit in particular, people need to be able to run a gig model, or see a gig model in a Revit application. So, the solution needs to be up to it, and that's what we were looking for. And we wanted the customers to test that. We also had 3 model sets. So we had obviously I think a lot of them were kind of between 60 and 100 meg. models, and then the next sort of stage up was kind of 300 to 500 meg, and then the next stage from there was kind of 800 meg up to like nearly 2 gig. So there's a big jump there, and it was really important to test all this kind of thing. And as I say, it's all about opinions, and it's all about opinions of the users. It's nothing more about, the facts and figures, which, there are them, and they are available on our website, and we'll get to that shortly. But it is all about the power of opinions, as I've got there. It's really important, and that's clear. This is not a scientific test. This is about usability, what actually ran well for you as a user. What could you use day in, day out? Now, the shocking bit of news was, I say shocking, but surprising, I should say. The 20 out of 30 of the customers preferred the Intel HP Moonshot solution for usability. Now that's really quite compelling, and it shocked us actually at IMS CAD a little bit, because we thought it would probably be 50-50, or maybe NVIDIA slightly better. And I think where even customers that had the more GPU based apps, still preferred the solution because of the usability of it. Now, they may not be able to spun the model around and 3D it and all that good stuff that they want to normally do as well, but the actual using the mouse and clicking and doing the basic kind of actions they would do day in, day out, they actually thought the usability was higher on the Intel. Now, it wasn't like loads in it. It was quite close, but it was a really interesting result, and obviously people that were using AutoCAD and Revit really saw a big difference, I think, overall, and it was really surprising. And we actually found that obviously CPU based apps, yeah, for sure, this sort of solution with Intel and HP really can deliver. And if you get more GPU apps, so more of your, as I said, SolidWorks, Siemens NX, CATIA, those sort of guys, it's I think you still you should really looking at NVIDIA as a solution. But this is a big step forward, and I think without question for us who are in it day in, day out in this market, it really has opened our eyes to it, and many of the customers were surprised as well. So I think it's a very good thing, obviously, because it just means there's another option, right? So that's the way to look at it. We love NVIDIA, don't get me wrong. We've built our business on NVIDIA solutions. So but to see something else really that we didn't expect to perform so well was a real bonus. So yeah, interesting stuff. And I'll just hark back to GPUs are going to be more required in the enterprise more and more. So that's what's great about the Moonshot solution, is that it can sit there and deal with the masses, let's say, the main users, and also a number of the kind of designers as well. So that's what's great about it. And then you still may have some NVIDIA based servers to do the high-end stuff as well. So there's no reason why you can't have both, right? So I think as things develop, things will get better, and the GPU will improve from Intel. And I know that the HP Moonshot box has a very sophisticated way of networking the traffic, so that obviously helps performance. Excuse me, but I recall going to see the guys at Moonshot, probably 2 years ago now, in France, and a lot of people were talking about it and getting quite excited about it, but it didn't really deliver when it came to even AutoCAD. You couldn't even load AutoCAD in a lot of cases. So the sort of progress they've made has been really good, and now this jump from Haswell to Broadwell has really changed the game from our opinion. So something to really think about looking at if you're looking to do this, and it's something obviously we'll talk a little bit more down the line in this presentation about how that you can actually get access to that. So as I said, it wasn't a like-for-like test. I think you've got to make that clear. It wasn't the same everything and thing, but it was about the customer opinion. Okay, so just to make that clear. So if you need some more details, if you go to our website, there's a link there. I'll send you, happily provide the slides, and we're recording this whole thing anyway, so you'll be able to see this again, and then you can see some of the results there, a bit more detail. So as I said, I'm not going to go too much into them, yeah, really good stuff. So And what does, I think the next question is, where does it really fit? So, it's okay having this great performance, and so where does it actually fit? And as I mentioned, it's for me and for us at IMS CAD, it's the CPU-based apps that really can work well on the Intel HP solution. And there's a lot of AutoCAD and Revit users out there. Believe me, that's the whole architectural world for starters. So it's a great place to start with this. And people that use the higher end graphical, say 3ds Max, for example, which is used a lot in these spaces, you can still either run that on a workstation or run it in a server. It's up to you, with NVIDIA. So I think that's a real important piece. And of course, at the same time, when you're centralizing your CAD and designers, you do the rest of your estate. Your office workers as well can have a VDI instance or a XenApp instance. So as I mentioned earlier, you can use these type of technologies to create much more density on these cartridges. It's not just set to 1-to-1, even though that's the normal recommended way of doing this. So with the CAD application. So obviously you don't need a hypervisor, of course. So you get a performance jump there because of that. And of course you can just have Zen Desktop, Horizon View, whatever you want to use, delivering that desktop out to the user from the data center. Of course, you're going to reduce your hardware footprint, massively. It's easier to sell to the users, okay? So, if you're an infrastructure buyer or you're an IT manager and you're just looking at this stuff and you're looking at what really is the best option for me, I would strongly advise you to look at both, actually. But also, for you, me thinking about it, when you talk about virtualization and a virtual environment, if people have it already in the business, so if you have a VMware or Citrix infrastructure already, I think it's a lot easier to do a virtual solution for your designers. If you're just starting out, you don't really have that, or you don't have it at a desktop level, maybe the HP Moonshot and Intel solution is the one to look at for you, because it's a much easier sell to business. It's a mini workstation in the data center, so it's much more say less complex to deploy. And of course, if you haven't got the experience in house, you're going to need a lot of support from people like me and my business here to help you do it. So so it's interesting. But yeah, I mean, obviously the jump embedded CPU, GPU, no PCI bus jump, so that obviously creates more speed for the user. And then obviously it's constantly improving. I know Intel can't talk about things that are coming down the road, but I know that they're constantly working hard to improve that GPU. So, and of course their CPUs are getting quicker every release. So it's all good news really. And I think as technology improves, it's only going to get a lot better, and it'll be interesting to see where it all ends up. But it's certainly for us, it's really changed our view on it. And I would encourage anyone listening in today that they should look at trying it out. We've got that option coming up. So where does it fit? So what we can't do is forget about NVIDIA, because obviously they've got a new release as well. It's Grid 2.0 it's called, and it's an M60 graphics card, which is a very powerful graphics card, which you can then cut up to suit your workflow. So whether you use whatever server you want to use, you can have an NVIDIA, and of course you can have 2, 3, sometimes 4 of these cards in a server. So there is a lot of NVIDIA aren't sitting still on their hands. They're fighting back. They've got this new release. If you want to run graphical applications, NVIDIA tick the box, right? So whether it's CPU or GPU, so across the board. So as I said, it's a smoother transition if you've already got a virtual environment to doing this. The HP Moonshot and Intel solution is just is a hardware solution. So yeah, some people may prefer that, but I think it's pros and cons to both, right? So it depends on the use case. It depends on what you're trying to achieve, and obviously we can help you here at IMS CAD understand what may be fit for you. So potentially high user density. I know it is a high user density. Up to maybe 32 per board, so 32 VDIs per board. So that can be quite a lot of users on one server. Obviously you're going to have a pretty good CPU to do that. So So there is some limitations, but obviously it's a big step forward for NVIDIA. So you know, it's obviously preset profiles to use demands. So you might have, you know, based on your apps. So think if you're using CATIA at a high level in the automotive trade, you know, CATIA, you know, you've got a massive, you know, large models, you know, complex designs, lots of graphics, and you know, you're going to need less users on the server because you're going to need that GPU to be working for you more. So it's just the way you cut it up, right? So it depends on the application mix and what infrastructure you have. Virtualization gives greater high availability options. I think that's fair to say. I mean, I think, you know, again, there's pros and cons, and people would argue with me on that, but you know, I think you know, the failover kind of thing with virtualization is really good. And of course, you know, it's constantly developing again for NVIDIA. They've got a new licensing solution with their new Grid 2.0. So it's a different way they're going with it, and it should get more users on each server. So that's what we're all trying to achieve here. What NVIDIA are trying to achieve, and obviously with HP and Intel, you know, they're just going to improve that GPU, and it's kind of I think it's just kind of a simpler pitch, right? So, you know, and that means a lot to these guys in this sort of world, because they're quite sensitive. I mean, CAD users are a tough crowd, right? They really are. We work with them every day, and you know, one little thing wrong with the performance, and they're like, you know, shouting and screaming. So, you know, it has to be good. It has to be fast, and this is why you know, we're really excited about both NVIDIA and Intel's new options. You know, the good news is IMS CAD still have a business with all this technology, because you know, obviously you still need that virtualization layer, right? So you still need, if you go HP Moonshot with Intel, you're still going to need Citrix or VMware to deliver the applications. So you know, and that takes you know, still some skills around optimization of the application and within the virtualization layer itself. And a lot of the stuff we do now is all around, you know, not only just consulting and making sure customers don't make mistakes. It's about that user culture, because you've got that kind of battle between IT and the CAD and design team, right? So they love their workstations under their desks, right? But the business doesn't want those anymore. They want to go to the cloud, or they want to go to the private cloud, or they want to go to centralized. So you know, you've got that kind of battle all the time, right? And it's something we can help you with if you're having that challenge. Because you know, it's all about selling the benefits to the users, right? So, you know, would you take? I mean, we spend our lives troubleshooting and also tweaking systems where, you know, we say to the users, look, do you really need these graphics this good, right? Could you take a little bit less graphics and jump in performance? And of course, when you show them it, you know, live on a session or whatever, remote session, they love it. You know, they love the fact that this can be tweaked to suit their requirement, right? So, you know, and then of course the flexible working piece, of course, we know about, and that all really helps as well. And of course, you know, it's just much easier for customers to deal with this stuff, you know, when it's centralized. You know, optimization on the image is important. You know, you don't know what you're doing with this stuff. The policies around Citrix and VMware are, you know, pretty in depth and complex. You've got to know what you're doing with that, and you know, you've got to know what you're doing with your apps. You know, what's going to work and what hardware stack. So, you know, that's something we're coming, and more we've become more of a storage and network business, because it just, you know, it's so important, especially with VDI, that you've got nice fast storage. And the great thing about kind of the HP solution with Intel is they've got all that on board in the box. They've got a little SSD in the cartridge. So, you know, it's really a true workstation sort of solution. We make a POC successful into it. So, you know, whether you want to go virtualization or centralization, it's really up to you. But effectively, we'll do this in 2 months. We have a very strict process and honed process we've done over our kind of 500 plus deployments that has meant that customers, you know, we set the expectations early and what we're going to achieve, and normally we get the rollout, you know, to where they want to go. And you know, either of these solutions are not a cheap option, I would say. There's no, you can't look at it as we're going to save money versus our workstation investment every 3 years or whatever we do. You know, it's not about that. It shouldn't be made about that. It's more about what does this sort of solution give us as a business, and I think that's really key to get across. You know, that mobility and that kind of flexibility of users and where they are and what they work on, and what device they want to use, and all the rest of it. So, so that can be achieved by all these solutions. And what we're pleased to see is that there is actually another game in town. It's shifting sands in the market. It's certainly an area where we've seen a shift, and we've been very much NVIDIA deliveries all the time, and now more and more we're seeing Moonshot and Intel opportunities. So it's just an interesting market at the moment, and okay, with Microsoft coming into it next year, or this year, sorry, that's going to open up a load of stuff again. So so I think let's not get taken away. It depends on your apps, it depends on your workflows and what you're doing, but Grid is still a very serious solution in this market, and I would be happy to have a conversation with you about that and what would fit your business. But the new Intel processors are only getting faster. The GPUs are getting better, and I can tell you that the Broadwell in nature of Moonshot really does fly. And I would encourage you to get in touch, and we can get you set up with a demo or something so you can try it out. So yeah, we've got customers at the moment. I know I can see one or two of them on the call today. So one or two, doing PSCing both solutions. So they've actually got a Moonshot, and they're getting an NVIDIA Grid server. So in their environment. So we will set that up for them, and obviously get their users on it, and run a POC for them. And that whole POC process is going to be interesting to see how that pans out for the users, because it is all about usability. I'll get back to it again. It's about what the users feel and think, and do they think that feels better as a solution. So, and also what's easier to manage for the customer, right? So that's important too. So we're ready to help you just with advice. You don't have to necessarily engage us for anything. We can just help you out with advice or more information. We've got demo servers in the US and in Europe. So if you want to actually come and try out the Moonshot, if you want to come and try out the NVIDIA Grid solution, you can. It's free, but obviously you only get a limited time because it's free. We're not a charity, so that's great. And then obviously I'd encourage you to ask any questions now, and we've reached the end of the presentation, but I'm just going to pop up my details there, and you can actually drop me an email or look at our website, and I see there's a couple of questions come through, so I'm just going to have a look at what's been said, or what's been asked, I should say. Okay, there's a few questions that I'll take offline there. I have to say, it's more about actually how can we get on and try this out, and so I'll take those offline. Let me find this. Okay, so people are asking where can we find the presentation. So obviously this is live now, so we'll be formulating this into a share file download. So it's being recorded, so you'll be able to download it and then listen to it again and go through the slides. And obviously, anything else, you can just go to our website or contact me directly. If there's no others, let's have a look. One's just come in. Okay, someone's asking which K2 profiles did you use? I mean, generally we use, in the AEC space, with the apps we generally deploy, like AutoCAD and Revit, Civil 3D, those sort of things, we always use a 240Q profile. So we end up with 16 VDIs, up to 16 VDIs on a server, and that's how we kind of do it. So yeah, that's the profile we use. But as you say, you can use different profiles to get different results. So yeah, but yeah. So well, there's no more questions, guys, at this stage. As I say, it's been a pleasure talking to you all. I hope you found it useful. It's interesting new development in the market, which is great, and I would encourage you to check it out. So it's contact us directly, or you can obviously we'll be sent access to this webinar downloaded. All right, so without further ado, thanks a lot, guys, and we'll hopefully speak to you again soon.